9 Buddhist truths to let go of after 70 for a lighter, happier life. Imagine this: you're sitting in the quiet of your home. The soft glow of the afternoon sun gently spills across the floor, casting long shadows that stretch and fade into the stillness. The only sound you hear is the ticking of the clock, the pulse of time slowly counting away. But instead of feeling peaceful, you feel something heavier. Not a pain, not an ache, but something deeper. A kind of tiredness that no nap seems to cure. A stillness that doesn't bring calm, but instead leaves you with a hollow feeling inside. This is the unspoken weight many of us carry as we grow older. It's not in our knees or our backs, it's something far less visible but far more profound. The weight of old regrets, the burden of past mistakes, the unspoken truths we've carried for decades. And most of all, the weight of the things we continue to hold on to, relationships that drain us, emotions that suffocate us, and attachments that no longer serve us. But here's the truth: aging doesn't have to be a slow retreat from life. It doesn't have to be a time of decline. What if, instead of accumulating more things, more possessions, more regrets, we could finally release what no longer serves us? What if we could lighten our hearts, embrace wisdom, and find peace in the years ahead? The Buddha once said, "To let go is to be free." And what if freedom was the key to living not just longer, but better? What if the path to true peace as we age doesn't lie in adding more, but in letting go of the heavy burdens we've been carrying? The truth is, true liberation comes not from the things we accumulate, but from the things we release. In this video, we're going to explore 8 profound Buddhist truths that offer a path to freedom and peace as we grow older. These teachings are not about rejecting life, but about embracing it more fully. They offer a roadmap to shedding the weight of past regrets, letting go of toxic relationships, and finally stepping into a more vibrant, peaceful version of yourself. This isn't just another self-help video. This is a deep invitation to reflect, to release, and to awaken to a life filled with greater peace and joy than you ever thought possible. These Buddhist truths are timeless, transformative, and can make all the difference in how you experience your golden years. So take a moment to settle in. Stay with us until the end of this video, because what you're about to discover has the power to transform your life. Don't miss this chance to uncover the true freedom and peace that awaits. And if you want to continue this journey toward a lighter, happier life, be sure to subscribe, like, and share. You won't want to miss any of the insightful, soul-nourishing content we have waiting for you. Now let's walk together on this path of release and renewal. Chapter 1: Letting go of the belief that there's nothing left to learn. As we age, it's common to feel that we've reached the end of our learning journey. We may start to think that by a certain age, we should have learned all that life has to offer. Our bodies may grow older, our physical abilities may decline, and our memory may fade, but what we often overlook is that the capacity for spiritual growth and mental expansion never truly ends. The Buddha's teachings remind us that learning is a lifelong pursuit, and it is in our continued openness to the unknown that we find true wisdom. In Buddhism, there is a deep understanding that the path to enlightenment does not stop when we reach a certain age. In fact, it is said that as we grow older, our wisdom can only deepen if we remain curious and open to new experiences. Aging doesn't close the door to learning, rather, it offers a new perspective on it. The Buddha taught that the mind is capable of continuous growth, just as a flower, despite growing from the mud, can reach the light. The lotus flower grows from the murkiness of the water, but it blooms beautifully and rises toward the sun. Similarly, our minds can continue to expand, no matter the challenges or age we face. Consider the story of the great Buddhist monk, Ananda. Even in his 80s, Ananda continued to study with the same reverence and humility as a beginner. He would wake up every morning and recite a single line of scripture as if hearing it for the first time. When a young novice asked him, "Master, why do you still practice as if you are a beginner?" Ananda smiled and replied, "Because the beginner sees the world with wonder. The master only knows how little he truly understands." This story illustrates the essence of the Buddha's teachings. Wisdom does not come from accumulating knowledge, but from the continuous willingness to learn and remain open. As we age, it's easy to become complacent. We may believe that we've learned everything we need to know and that our growth has plateaued. But the truth is, as long as we have breath in our bodies, there is always room for learning. The fire of curiosity, just like a flame, needs to keep burning in our hearts. Without it, our spirits will grow dim, but with it, we remain vibrant, alive, and full of potential. Take the example of Alina, a woman I met at a mindfulness retreat. At 76, Alina decided to learn Mandarin, not because she had a practical need to, but simply because she was curious. She told me, "I want to see how far my brain can stretch." Her eyes sparkled with enthusiasm, and you could feel the warmth of her curiosity radiating. Alina's decision wasn't about impressing anyone or achieving a goal. It was about the joy of discovery and the freedom to learn without limitation. It's this kind of openness that the Buddha encourages in all of us, regardless of our age. When we stop learning, we stop growing. The Buddha taught that a true spiritual life requires constant inquiry, questioning, and openness to new understanding. It's not about finding all the answers, but about engaging in the process of learning with humility and a willingness to embrace the unknown. The middle way, which the Buddha advocates, is not a static path. It's a dynamic journey of continual transformation. Aging offers us a unique opportunity to cultivate this deeper wisdom. It's a time when the external noise of life begins to quiet down and the internal questions grow louder. We begin to ask ourselves questions that we may not have had time for in our younger years. These questions might revolve around the meaning of life, the nature of suffering, or the pursuit of inner peace. This is where true growth happens, not in accumulating more achievements, but in expanding our consciousness and understanding. The Buddha's teachings remind us that we are never too old to learn. Just as a candle cannot burn without a flame, we cannot truly live without the fire of curiosity. Learning, growing, and discovering are what make life rich and meaningful. As we embrace the process of continuous learning, we unlock a deeper understanding of ourselves, of others, and of the world around us. So I ask you, as you journey through life, no matter your age, what new question could you ask today? What part of your heart and mind could you open to that you may have closed off in the past? In letting go of the belief that you know everything, you open yourself to a new beginning, a rebirth of wisdom, compassion, and peace. The true path of enlightenment doesn't end when we grow older. It is a path that continues to unfold as long as we are willing to walk it with an open heart and a curious mind. This is the essence of Buddhist wisdom. To approach each day as an opportunity to learn, to explore, and to grow. Aging does not diminish the mind, it refines it, allowing us to see life with greater clarity, understanding, and compassion. It is never too late to continue learning. Every moment is an opportunity to bloom, just like the lotus, no matter how many years have passed. Chapter 2: Letting Go of Toxic Relationships Without Guilt. As we move through life, particularly as we grow older, one of the hardest and most poignant truths to confront is that not all relationships are meant to last. This can be especially difficult when those relationships are with people we once held dear, family, friends, or loved ones. But as time passes, we often come to realize that some relationships no longer nurture us. In fact, they may drain us, leaving us feeling empty, tired, and even resentful. And yet, we may feel an overwhelming sense of guilt at the idea of letting go of these connections. Buddhism teaches us that attachment is the root of suffering. Holding on to relationships that no longer serve our well-being only perpetuates our pain. The Buddha spoke of attachment not as a simple emotional bond, but as something that binds us to suffering, keeping us stuck in a cycle of dependency, fear, and disappointment. It is through attachment that we allow others to have power over our peace of mind, over our happiness. But the Buddha also reminds us that true peace begins within ourselves. We must learn to protect our own light, even if it means letting go of relationships that no longer reflect the harmony we seek. Think of the bamboo tree. It grows tall and strong, bending with the wind but never breaking. And just as the bamboo sheds its branches without hesitation or regret when they no longer serve it, we too must learn to shed the relationships that no longer serve us. It's not an act of cruelty, but an act of compassion, not just for ourselves, but for the other person as well. Sometimes, holding on to toxic relationships only prolongs the suffering for both parties involved. There's a powerful story from Buddhist teachings about a monk named Tissa. Tissa was known for his dutiful nature, always polite but distant. He carried a deep sadness which was evident to his teacher. One day the teacher asked Tissa about his sadness, and after much prodding, Tissa confessed that he had been writing letters to his brother, who had responded with nothing but anger and cruelty. "He's my blood," Tissa said, "I must endure him." The teacher, wise and compassionate, looked at the fallen branch of a bamboo tree and asked, "Do you see that branch on the path? It once belonged to the tree, but now it no longer serves it. Does the bamboo mourn its absence?" Tissa, in that moment, understood. The bamboo did not grieve the fallen branch because it had no need for it. Likewise, Tissa realized he did not need to continue sacrificing his peace for a relationship that was causing him suffering. Letting go of toxic relationships is never easy, especially when they are with people we love or feel obligated to care for. But Buddhist wisdom offers a gentle reminder. When we hold on to toxic relationships out of guilt, we are only prolonging our own suffering. The Buddha's teaching, if you hold on to anger, it is like grasping a hot coal with the intent of throwing it at someone else. "You are the one who gets burned" is a vivid reminder that carrying the weight of anger, resentment, and toxic attachments only harms us. We are the ones who suffer. Letting go of toxic relationships is an act of self-love. It is not about rejecting someone else, but about protecting the peace and light within us. When we allow ourselves to be drained by toxic relationships, we allow others to steal our joy, our peace, and our sense of self. To let go is to choose to protect our light. It is a way of honoring ourselves and the truth of who we are. It's about cultivating the space in our hearts for healthier, more supportive relationships to flourish, relationships that nourish us, that help us grow, and that allow us to flourish in peace. We must understand that when we let go, we are not doing so out of anger or bitterness. We are simply recognizing that, just as a tree sheds its leaves in the fall to make room for new growth in the spring, we must let go of relationships that stifle our growth and well-being. This doesn't mean that we discard the past or the good moments we shared with others, but it means we stop allowing the unhealthy dynamics to define our future. I once spoke to a woman named Clara, an elderly woman who had spent years enduring difficult and hurtful interactions with her son. Every Sunday she would attend family dinners with him, but each dinner ended in tears as he criticized her, mocked her choices, and belittled her feelings. But Clara, out of love and a sense of duty, continued attending these dinners, convinced that she had to endure, that she had to be a good mother. One day, after listening to her for some time, I asked, "Clara, do you feel at peace when you leave these dinners?" She hesitated, then softly replied, "No, I feel drained, but he's my son." I didn't need to say much. Clara had already asked herself the right question. The following week, she chose not to attend dinner. Instead, she sat alone on her porch with a cup of jasmine tea. For the first time in years, Clara felt a sense of peace. It wasn't that she had abandoned her son, it was that she had chosen herself, choosing peace over guilt, self-compassion over obligation. This is the lesson that Buddhism teaches, that true love for others begins with love for oneself. It is only by respecting our own needs, our own peace, that we can offer authentic love to others. We cannot pour from an empty cup. Letting go of toxic relationships is a way to fill our cup, to make room for the relationships that support and nurture us. When we let go of toxic relationships, we practice compassion, not only for ourselves but for the other person as well. Sometimes, the most compassionate act we can offer someone is to step away from a relationship that is no longer healthy. It gives them the space to grow, and it gives us the space to heal. This is not a call to sever all ties in haste or anger, but to evaluate where your energy is being spent. Ask yourself, is this relationship nurturing my peace, my growth, my happiness? If the answer is no, then it may be time to let go. The Buddha's words ring true. We cannot continue to carry the burdens of others if it means sacrificing our own well-being. As you walk through life, remember that letting go of toxic relationships is an act of profound self-love. It is a way of clearing the path for peace and for the healthy, loving relationships that we truly deserve. Embrace the wisdom of the Buddha and recognize that releasing toxic attachments is not a loss, but a gain of peace, joy, and a deeper connection to yourself and the world around you. Chapter 3: Letting Go of Clutter, Physical, Emotional, and Mental. One of the core teachings in Buddhism is the understanding that attachment to things, whether physical objects, emotions, or mental states, leads to suffering. At first glance, it seems obvious that physical clutter is what weighs us down. Old clothes we don't wear, books we've already read, and trinkets that no longer have meaning. But the Buddha teaches us that the true source of suffering isn't just the things we hold on to, but the attachments we form around them. And these attachments are not limited to physical objects. They can extend to emotions, memories, and the mental clutter that occupies our minds, preventing us from living fully in the present. The concept of attachment in Buddhism isn't just about wanting or needing things. It's about how we cling to them as though our happiness depends on them. Whether it's a keepsake from a loved one or a past regret that lingers in our mind, the Buddha teaches that clinging to anything, even intangible emotions, binds us to suffering. Consider the story of Sama, a woman whose emotional clutter was symbolized by the objects she couldn't bring herself to part with. She had lived for many years in a house filled with items that had once held great meaning, gifts from friends, items inherited from family, and keepsakes from moments long past. Yet these objects no longer served her, they simply reminded her of old wounds and past regrets. Sama's home had become a storage space for memories she was not ready to release. She held on to these objects, thinking that if she let go of them, she would also lose the connection to the past. But the more Sama clung to these possessions, the more she felt trapped in a cycle of emotional attachment. It wasn't the objects themselves that held her, she was emotionally attached to the stories and emotions they represented. Each item reminded her of a part of her life she wasn't ready to let go of, even though that very attachment was preventing her from finding peace. The turning point came when Sama attended a Buddhist meditation retreat. During one of the sessions, the teacher spoke about the concept of letting go. The teacher encouraged the participants to take a closer look at the clutter in their lives, not just in their homes, but in their hearts and minds as well. Sama felt an overwhelming need to clear out the physical clutter in her house, and more importantly, to clear the mental and emotional clutter that had built up over the years. As she began to release the possessions she had clung to, she noticed a sense of lightness, both physically and emotionally. It wasn't just the space in her home that had cleared up, it was the space in her heart as well. Sama's journey of clearing her space mirrored the teachings of the Buddha. Letting go is not about discarding physical things for the sake of minimalism, but about releasing the attachments that bind us to the past. Each object that Sama let go of symbolized a part of her past that no longer served her. As she cleared her home, she also cleared her mind. She no longer felt weighed down by the emotional baggage that had once been represented by those objects. In Buddhism, we learn that attachment is the root cause of suffering, whether that attachment is to things, people, or emotions. The Buddha's teachings encourage us to let go of attachments, not to deny the past or forget our experiences, but to release the mental and emotional hold they have over us. By doing so, we free ourselves from suffering and allow ourselves to experience life fully in the present moment. One of the key lessons in Buddhism is the practice of being present, of living in the moment. But how can we truly live in the present if we are still carrying around the weight of the past? The Buddha taught that in order to be free, we must let go of not just physical things, but also emotional and mental attachments. Letting go of the past means letting go of the stories we tell ourselves about who we were and what we've lost. It means accepting that we cannot change what has happened, and that holding on to those memories, no matter how deeply they're embedded in us, only keeps us from moving forward. The Buddha's reflection on letting go, let go of the past, the future, and the present, reminds us that we are not meant to be defined by our memories, our regrets, or our possessions. It's not just about clearing physical space in our lives, it's about clearing space in our hearts and minds. True liberation comes when we stop clinging to what we have and don't have, to what we've done and haven't done. The present moment, as the Buddha teaches, is where true peace can be found. The practice of mindfulness meditation offers a powerful tool for releasing this clutter. By becoming aware of our thoughts, emotions, and attachments, we begin to see the ways in which they keep us stuck. Mindfulness helps us recognize when we're clinging to the past and when we're allowing our emotions to hold us hostage. Through this awareness, we can slowly begin to let go of what no longer serves us, and in doing so, we create space for peace and joy to enter our lives. A clear mind and a clear heart are not just the result of decluttering our homes. They are the result of an ongoing practice of letting go of the mental and emotional attachments that hold us back. This process is gradual, but with patience and compassion, we can release the clutter that weighs us down and find true freedom. By embracing the Buddha's teachings on letting go, we can transform our lives. We no longer need to be defined by our past possessions, regrets, or emotional baggage. We can let go of what no longer serves us and make room for new experiences, new joys, and new wisdom. Just as Sama's journey of clearing physical space led her to emotional peace, so too can we find inner freedom by letting go of the mental and emotional clutter that binds us to suffering. The Buddha's teaching to let go of the past, the future, and the present is not just about physical possessions. It is about releasing all the attachments that prevent us from living fully in the present moment. The past cannot be changed and the future is not yet here. True peace is found in the present, and it is only through releasing our attachments to the past, our fear of the future, and our emotional clutter in the present that we can fully experience the freedom and peace that the Buddha spoke of. Letting go is not a loss, it is an opportunity to live with a lighter heart and a clearer mind, free from the burdens of unnecessary attachment. Chapter 4: Letting Go of the Fear of Aging. Aging is a universal experience that we all must face, yet in a society that glorifies youth and vitality, the fear of growing old often casts a long shadow over our lives. We are taught to fear the physical decline that accompanies aging, the wrinkles, the gray hair, the slow but inevitable changes to our bodies. This fear is compounded by the pressure to maintain a youthful appearance, a vibrant energy, and a sense of constant achievement. We are told in subtle and not so subtle ways that to age is to fade, to lose value, and to become irrelevant. However, the Buddha's teachings offer a radically different perspective. In Buddhism, aging is not viewed as a curse, but as a natural, even sacred part of life. It is not something to fear or resist, but something to embrace. The Buddha understood that aging is simply the process of impermanence, one of life's most profound truths. As our bodies change, so do our minds and hearts. In this process of aging, we have the opportunity to find greater clarity, peace, and acceptance of what is. We come to understand that aging does not diminish our worth or radiance. It reveals it. The Buddha's teachings on impermanence remind us that everything in life is in constant flux. Nothing, including our bodies, stays the same. Yet, rather than fearing this change, the Buddha encourages us to embrace it, knowing that it is a natural and inevitable part of our journey. Aging is not about what fades, whether it's the firmness of our skin or the speed of our steps, but about what is revealed beneath the surface. The wisdom we've accumulated, the compassion we've cultivated, and the depth of our understanding. There's a beautiful story of a Buddhist monk who, as he grew older, came to accept the imperfections of his body with grace. His body had begun to show signs of aging, wrinkles etched into his face, a slower gait, and weaker muscles. But rather than being dismayed by these changes, he saw them as a reflection of the life he had lived, a life of wisdom and inner peace. When a young monk once asked him how he managed to accept his aging body with such serenity, the elderly monk smiled and replied, "True radiance does not come from physical beauty. It comes from the peace that resides within." This monk's story teaches us that true radiance and beauty are not dependent on our external appearance. The glow we carry does not come from the smoothness of our skin or the brightness of our eyes. It comes from within, from the peace we cultivate in our hearts and minds. As we age, the wisdom we have gathered over the years becomes the light that guides us. Our inner peace, grounded in the acceptance of impermanence, is the most enduring form of beauty we can possess. The Buddha also taught that aging should not be feared because it brings with it a sense of liberation. As we age, the pressures of youth begin to fade. We no longer feel the need to prove ourselves or conform to society's ideals of beauty and success. This freedom allows us to live with greater authenticity, to embrace who we truly are without the need for validation or external approval. It is in this acceptance of our true selves, imperfections, and all, that we find the deepest form of peace. Consider the story of Joy, a woman in her 80s who had spent much of her earlier life worrying about her appearance. She had once been concerned about her looks, striving to keep up with the standards of beauty she saw in magazines and on television. But as she grew older, she began to embrace the changes in her body. Her wrinkles, she realized, were not signs of decline, but markers of a life well lived, a life filled with love, laughter, loss, and growth. At the age of 89, she remarked, "I used to dread growing old. Now I wear my wrinkles like prayer beads. Each one reminds me that I've stayed long enough to love, to cry, to laugh, and to live." Joy's transformation reflects the Buddha's teachings on aging. Instead of fearing the inevitable passage of time, she learned to embrace it as a natural part of her journey. Her acceptance of her changing body became a source of strength, not weakness. Through her wrinkles, she saw not loss, but the wisdom and experience she had gained. Aging, then, is not about what fades, but about what reveals itself. The more we age, the more we come to understand the impermanence of life, and with that understanding comes wisdom. We begin to appreciate the fleeting nature of all things, which deepens our capacity for love, compassion, and acceptance. As we let go of the fear of aging, we open ourselves to the freedom of living fully in the present, without the constant worry of losing what we have or longing for what we once were. The Buddha's wisdom invites us to let go of the fear of aging and to embrace the impermanence of life. Aging is not about what fades, it is about what reveals itself, our inner wisdom, our capacity for love, and our ability to live with grace. The wisdom we've accumulated over the years is a treasure that only deepens as we accept the inevitability of change. In this acceptance, we find true peace and a deeper connection to ourselves and to the world around us. When we stop fearing the aging process, we can begin to embrace it as a time of blossoming, not fading. It's a time to live more fully, to let go of the external pressures that once defined us, and to cultivate the peace that arises from within. As we age, we are not losing our value. We are uncovering the true beauty and radiance that come from accepting life in all its impermanence. Aging in this light becomes not a burden, but a blessing, an opportunity to embody the wisdom, love, and peace we have gained over a lifetime. Chapter 5: Letting Go of Expecting Others to Make You Happy. In a world that constantly encourages us to look outward for fulfillment, whether through relationships, social validation, or external achievements, it is easy to forget one of the Buddha's most profound teachings. True happiness comes from within. We are conditioned to believe that our happiness depends on others, on their love, approval, or actions. But this expectation is often the root of disappointment and frustration. The Buddha's wisdom calls us to turn inward, to recognize that the key to lasting happiness lies not in others, but in ourselves. When we rely on others to fill our emotional needs, we are giving away our power. We become dependent on the behaviors, words, and actions of others, hoping they will provide us with the love, validation, and contentment we seek. Yet, because people change, situations evolve, and expectations are often unmet, we find ourselves constantly chasing something that cannot be sustained. And when others inevitably fail to meet those needs, we are left feeling empty, rejected, or unworthy. But the Buddha teaches us that real happiness is cultivated through mindfulness, self-compassion, and a deep awareness of our own worth. This is not to say that relationships and external sources of joy are irrelevant, but rather that we must first develop a solid foundation of inner peace and contentment. When we rely on ourselves to find happiness, we stop giving others the power to shape our emotional state. Instead, we learn to build a joy that is resilient, self-sustained, and rooted in the present moment. I once met a woman named Ruth who had lived a rich and full life. At 91 years old, she was still vibrant, curious, and deeply engaged in her own personal growth. One afternoon, as I sat with her at a local community center, I asked her what brought her joy at this stage of life. She smiled softly and replied, "I found joy in painting. Not because I wanted to impress anyone, not because I wanted to show the world my skill, but simply because it made my soul come alive." At 91, Ruth had long stopped looking for external sources of happiness. She had realized that her joy was not dependent on others, but on her own ability to connect with her inner self and her passions. Painting allowed her to tap into that wellspring of contentment, a place deep within where she could find peace regardless of what was happening around her. Ruth's story is a beautiful example of the Buddha's teaching on self-reliance and the cultivation of happiness from within. She found joy in the act of creating, not because it validated her worth or earned her approval, but because it nurtured her soul. Ruth had learned that the path to happiness is not about seeking it from others, but about reconnecting with the joy that resides in our own hearts. This is the essence of the Buddha's message. We are the creators of our own happiness. The Buddha's words, "No one saves us but ourselves. No one can and no one may. We ourselves must walk the path," speak directly to this truth. Happiness cannot be given to us by others. It is a path we must walk ourselves. It is a journey of cultivating inner peace, self-acceptance, and emotional independence. We must learn to rely on ourselves to nurture our well-being instead of expecting others to fill that role. This does not mean that relationships, love, or connection are unimportant. On the contrary, they are deeply meaningful parts of life. But when we depend on them to provide our happiness, we give away the power to others, leaving ourselves vulnerable to disappointment. True fulfillment comes when we begin to recognize that the source of happiness lies not in how others treat us, but in how we treat ourselves. When we develop a deep sense of self-love, self-compassion, and mindfulness, we can experience joy regardless of what is happening around us. There is a powerful practice in Buddhism called metta or loving-kindness meditation, where we focus on cultivating love and compassion for ourselves first, and then extend it outward to others. This practice helps to build a foundation of self-acceptance and peace. When we love ourselves deeply, we no longer look to others to validate our worth. Instead, we shine our light from within, allowing our relationships to be rooted in genuine connection and shared happiness, rather than neediness or expectation. The Buddha's teachings remind us that happiness is not something we can acquire from the outside world, but something we cultivate from within. When we rely on others to make us happy, we are setting ourselves up for disappointment. True happiness arises from a deep sense of inner peace, self-awareness, and self-compassion. We must learn to be our own source of joy, recognizing that we are complete as we are, and that our emotional well-being is not dependent on others. The path to happiness, according to the Buddha, is a path of self-reliance. We are the ones who must walk this path, cultivating our own peace and joy. When we turn inward and begin to nurture ourselves, we create the foundation for lasting happiness, one that is not dependent on external circumstances or other people. We learn to live with mindfulness, to be present with our emotions, and to find contentment in the simple act of being. This is the true essence of happiness, not something given to us, but something we create from within. Chapter 6: Letting Go of Comparing Yourself to the Young. In a society that often celebrates youth, it's easy to fall into the trap of comparing ourselves to younger versions of ourselves, or even to younger people in general. We see the energy, the vibrancy, and the seemingly endless potential of youth, and we may begin to measure our own worth against that standard. We may find ourselves longing for the vitality of our younger years, reminiscing about the physical strength, the speed, or the ease with which we once moved through life. But this habit of comparison is not only unkind to ourselves, it is also an illusion, one that causes us to miss the beauty and wisdom that come with age. Buddhism teaches that comparison is rooted in illusion. The truth is that each stage of life offers its own unique gifts, and no stage is inherently better than another. The suffering we experience when we compare ourselves to others or to our past selves comes from the belief that we are lacking something, that we should be something we are not, or that we should be able to do things we once did. But this belief, the Buddha teaches, is false. It stems from a misunderstanding of impermanence and the nature of self. When we look back at our younger selves or at others who seem to be more energetic, more successful, or more carefree, we are overlooking the richness and depth that comes with experience. As we age, we accumulate wisdom, understanding, and emotional resilience. These qualities are not to be compared to youthful energy, they are to be celebrated in their own right. Consider the example of an elderly woman I once met named Teresa. She was in her 80s and had been a dancer in her younger years, performing on grand stages all over the world. As she grew older, she noticed that her body could no longer move with the same fluidity and strength as it once had. She had trouble doing the moves she once performed effortlessly, and she often found herself frustrated by the physical limitations that came with age. One day, while reflecting on this, Teresa spoke about how much she missed the thrill of dancing and how she felt sad at the loss of her youthful abilities. But then, she told me something that completely shifted her perspective. "You know," she said, "I used to think my dancing was about the physical grace. But as I've grown older, I realize that the grace I bring now is not about movement, it's about the stillness in my heart. It's the peace that comes with knowing who I am now, without all the competition or the drive to be the best. Now when I dance, I feel the rhythm of life, and it's different, it's deeper." Teresa's reflection is a beautiful example of the Buddhist teaching on comparison. In her youth, she compared herself to other dancers, striving to be the best, to move with flawless precision. But as she aged, she came to understand that comparison was no longer useful. Instead, she embraced the beauty of her current experience, one that was not focused on physical prowess, but on the peace and wisdom she had gained over the years. She found grace in the stillness of her heart, and in doing so, she embraced a new form of beauty, one that transcended the physical. The Buddha teaches us that we are not meant to be who we were in the past. Our past selves, with their energy and ambitions, are part of the story, but they do not define who we are now. Instead, we are meant to embrace who we are today, with all the wisdom, understanding, and experience we've gathered along the way. To compare ourselves to the younger versions of ourselves or to others is to ignore the unique gifts of the present moment. In Buddhism, there is a teaching about the nature of the self, which reminds us that the self is not static. It is not the same person we were yesterday, and it will not be the same person tomorrow. We are constantly evolving, and each stage of life offers new lessons and new wisdom. The Buddha teaches us to accept the self as it is right now, in this moment, with all of its imperfections and experiences. Instead of longing for the past or comparing ourselves to others, we can find peace in the acceptance of who we are now. This is not to say that we should deny the realities of aging or the limitations that come with it. But rather than seeing these changes as losses, we can view them as opportunities to deepen our understanding of ourselves and the world around us. Just as a deep well holds its water in stillness, so too can we find peace in the quiet depths of our own experiences. Aging brings with it a sense of calm and perspective that youth cannot offer. It is in this stillness that we can truly find our wisdom. The Buddha's teachings on comparison remind us that we are not meant to be who we were in the past. Our younger selves were wonderful in their time, but they do not define us now. We are meant to embrace who we are today in all our wisdom and experience. To compare ourselves to others or to a younger version of ourselves is to disregard the richness of the present moment. Instead, we must learn to find peace in who we are right now, understanding that each stage of life holds its own beauty and grace. In this acceptance, we can find the true freedom of being, without the need for comparison or longing for what we cannot change. Chapter 7: Letting Go of Regret. Forgive yourself for the past. As we move through life, especially as we grow older, the weight of regret often grows heavier. The mistakes we've made, the opportunities we missed, the things we wish we had done differently, these can all haunt us like shadows, lingering in the corners of our minds. For some, regret becomes a constant companion, quietly gnawing at their peace and happiness. And yet, the Buddha's teachings offer us a way out of this cycle of self-blame and guilt. The path of forgiveness, and particularly the practice of self-forgiveness. Regret is an emotion rooted in attachment to the past, and Buddhism teaches us that attachment is the cause of suffering. When we hold on to regret, we are essentially clinging to a past that cannot be changed. We cannot undo the things we wish we had done differently, but we can choose to release the burden of that regret and step into a space of acceptance and peace. Self-forgiveness is not about erasing our mistakes or pretending they didn't happen. Rather, it is about acknowledging the lessons we have learned from them and finding compassion for ourselves. The Buddha's teachings on forgiveness are profound. Forgiveness is often seen as something we do for others, but the true power of forgiveness lies in our ability to forgive ourselves. When we release the hold that regret has on our hearts, we free ourselves from the emotional chains that keep us stuck in the past. It is through self-forgiveness that we can heal, grow, and move forward with a lighter heart. Consider the story of Kammer, a woman whose life had been marked by pride and regret. In her youth, Kammer had been arrogant and dismissive of others, believing herself to be superior. She lived a life focused on status, material wealth, and self-importance, often at the expense of relationships and kindness. As the years passed, Kammer began to feel the weight of her past actions. She regretted the times she had been unkind, the moments she had acted out of ego, and the relationships she had damaged through her pride. The burden of her regret became so heavy that it clouded her ability to find peace. One day, Kammer encountered the Buddha, who was known for his boundless compassion and wisdom. She approached him, feeling the full weight of her past. "Master," she said, "I have lived a life of pride, and now I am left with nothing but regret. Can there be forgiveness for someone like me?" The Buddha looked at her with deep compassion and replied, "Just as the ocean receives all rivers, whether muddy or clear, so too can wisdom receive even a life once misguided. Your past actions do not define you. What matters is the wisdom you have gained from them and the compassion you now offer to yourself." In that moment, Kammer realized that the key to peace was not in wishing away her past, but in accepting it with compassion. She understood that forgiveness was not about forgetting her mistakes, but about releasing the poison of regret that had kept her heart bound for so long. She began to forgive herself, acknowledging the lessons learned and finding peace in the knowledge that her past no longer had to control her present. Kammer's story teaches us that self-forgiveness is a process of letting go. It is not about erasing the past or pretending it never happened, but about embracing the wisdom gained from our experiences and finding compassion for ourselves. When we forgive ourselves, we free ourselves from the grip of regret, allowing us to live fully in the present. In Buddhism, forgiveness is not about forgetting, it is about releasing the emotional weight that keeps us bound to our past mistakes. It is about recognizing that the poison of regret harms no one but ourselves. The Buddha teaches us that when we hold on to regret, we are holding on to suffering. But when we let go of it, we open ourselves to healing, growth, and peace. The Buddha's teaching on forgiveness reminds us that forgiveness is not a denial of the past, it is a release of its hold on us. To forgive ourselves is to stop allowing our past mistakes to define our worth or our potential. It is an act of self-compassion that allows us to embrace the wisdom we have gained and move forward with a lighter heart. When we forgive ourselves, we acknowledge that we are human, that we make mistakes, but that we are also capable of growth, healing, and transformation. Forgiveness does not mean forgetting. It means releasing the emotional poison that regret leaves behind. It is about accepting that we have learned from the past and that we are no longer bound by it. When we forgive ourselves, we free our hearts from the weight of guilt and allow ourselves to step into a future filled with possibility, peace, and self-love. In the end, self-forgiveness is not just about finding peace with our past. It is about embracing the full richness of who we are, with all our imperfections, mistakes, and wisdom. It is through this acceptance that we can truly heal, and it is through self-forgiveness that we can begin to live with a heart full of compassion, not just for others, but for ourselves as well. Chapter 8: Letting Go of the Lie That It's Too Late. One of the most insidious lies we tell ourselves as we grow older is that it's too late to begin again. We look at the years behind us, the missed opportunities, the things we never did, and tell ourselves that time has run out. We often fall into the trap of believing that we've passed the age where new dreams, new pursuits, or new opportunities are possible. This belief can become a heavy burden, one that holds us back from embracing the fullness of life, from starting new chapters or exploring new avenues of growth. But the Buddha's teachings shine a light on the truth. As long as we are alive, the journey continues and new possibilities await us. The lie that it's too late is one that keeps us trapped in a static vision of life, preventing us from seeing the countless opportunities for renewal that exist in each moment. According to the Buddha, every single day is an opportunity for a fresh start, a new beginning. The past, with all its regrets and unfinished business, is gone. The future, with all its uncertainties, is yet to come. All we truly have is the present moment, one that offers us the chance to embrace new experiences and possibilities, no matter how old we are. Consider the story of Ruth, a woman who, at the age of 91, picked up a paintbrush for the first time. She had lived a long life filled with its own challenges and triumphs, but at 91, she didn't let age stop her from exploring something she had never done before. Ruth had always admired art, but had never considered herself an artist. One day, on a whim, she decided to try painting. It wasn't about becoming a professional or impressing anyone. It was simply about expressing herself, about finding joy in the act of creation. The first time she dipped the brush into the paint, Ruth was unsure of herself, but with each stroke, she felt a sense of freedom and fulfillment that she had never experienced before. Her new hobby wasn't just about painting. It was about allowing herself the space to explore, to experiment, and to rediscover a joy she had put aside for so long. At 91, Ruth's decision to begin painting was a reminder that life does not end with age. It transforms, opens up, and offers new avenues for growth. Ruth's story is a testament to the power of the Buddha's teaching that it is never too late to begin again. Age does not limit us. It opens us up to new experiences, new joys, and new opportunities. When we let go of the belief that it's too late, we free ourselves to live with a sense of possibility. Life does not stop unfolding just because the years pass by. It continues to offer us chances for renewal and growth. The opportunity to learn something new, to explore a new passion, or to embark on a new journey is always available to us, regardless of our age. The Buddha's wisdom reminds us that each morning we are born again. This simple yet profound teaching encourages us to view each day as a new beginning, as a chance to reset, to explore, and to embrace life with a fresh perspective. No matter what has happened in the past, no matter how many dreams we've let slip away or opportunities we've missed, every new day gives us a chance to start again. It's not about erasing the past or pretending that time hasn't passed. It's about embracing the present with an open heart and mind, ready to take on whatever the future holds. There is a beautiful example in Buddhist teachings of the elderly master who, despite his age, continued to teach and learn with an open heart. One of his students asked him, "Master, you've learned so much. Why do you continue to study? Isn't it too late?" The master, with a twinkle in his eye, replied, "It is never too late to learn. It is never too late to seek the truth. Each day I am born again, and each day offers a new chance to deepen my understanding." This master's wisdom serves as a reminder that the pursuit of knowledge, growth, and self-awareness is not bound by age. As long as we are alive, the potential for learning and transformation exists. The Buddha's teaching that each morning we are born again is a profound reminder that time does not have to be a barrier to growth. It is not the years behind us that define us, it is the way we choose to live in the present moment. When we let go of the lie that it's too late, we open ourselves to endless possibilities. Life is constantly unfolding, offering us new experiences, new lessons, and new opportunities. The path of renewal is always available to us, and it is through embracing each day as a new beginning that we truly live. The Buddha teaches us to embrace impermanence, not as something to fear, but as something that allows us to reinvent ourselves, to begin again, and to transform our lives, no matter how many years have passed. Age does not close doors, it opens them. By accepting the present moment and letting go of the past, we discover that it is never too late to pursue joy, to seek new passions, and to continue on the journey of self-discovery. Every day is a chance to be reborn, to live with a sense of wonder and possibility, and to create the life we desire, no matter where we are on our path. Chapter 9: Letting Go of the Need for External Validation. As we journey through life, particularly as we age, many of us begin to realize that we've spent much of our time seeking validation from the world around us. Whether through accomplishments, appearances, praise, or the approval of others, we often measure our worth based on external factors. We seek acknowledgement from those around us, friends, family, colleagues, even society at large, believing that their recognition will affirm our value. However, this endless chase for external validation leads to an exhausting and ultimately unsatisfying cycle. No matter how much praise we receive or how many accolades we collect, they are always fleeting. In truth, the more we chase these external forms of recognition, the more we find ourselves weary, unfulfilled, and still searching for a sense of worth. The Buddha, in his infinite wisdom, teaches that true peace and happiness come not from external validation but from within. Our worth, he says, is inherent, and the only true form of validation we need is from ourselves. In Buddhism, we are reminded that everything in life is impermanent. Praise, criticism, success, and failure, they all come and go. The only thing that is constant is our own inner truth. The Buddha said, "You yourself, as much as anybody in the entire universe, deserve your love and affection." This profound statement reminds us that we do not need others to affirm our worth because we are already enough as we are. True happiness and peace come when we release the need for others' approval and instead cultivate self-love and self-compassion. Consider the story of Zen master Hakuin, a well-known Buddhist monk revered for his wisdom and equanimity. One day, a woman from a nearby village came to Hakuin, claiming that he was the father of her child. Without hesitation, Hakuin accepted the blame and took responsibility for the child. Years later, the woman confessed that she had lied and that the true father was another man. When the villagers learned of her deception, they expected Hakuin to be angry or resentful. But instead, Hakuin simply smiled and said, "Is that so?" In this story, we see the essence of true equanimity. Hakuin was not swayed by praise or blame. His peace was not dependent on how others saw him or how they treated him. He had long ago let go of the need for external validation, knowing that his true worth was not determined by the opinions of others. His example teaches us that when we release our attachment to external validation, we are free to experience true inner peace. The Buddha's teachings urge us to turn inward for validation, to recognize that our worth comes from the wisdom and goodness within us. As we grow older, we may find that much of our life has been spent seeking validation from others through our achievements, our relationships, or our outward success. But as we embrace the wisdom of the Buddha, we learn to let go of this external dependence. The only thing that truly defines us is our inherent goodness, our capacity for compassion, and the depth of our self-awareness. One such example is Maria, a woman I met at a mindfulness retreat. At 72, Maria had spent much of her life seeking approval from others, whether from her children, her colleagues, or her friends. She would constantly worry about how she was perceived, and her self-worth was tied to the recognition she received from the outside world. But through the practice of mindfulness and self-compassion, Maria began to realize that her value was not dependent on others' opinions. She learned that she was enough as she was, without needing external affirmation. By letting go of the need for approval, Maria found a profound sense of peace and self-acceptance. Maria's transformation mirrors the Buddha's teachings. The peace we seek does not come from the accolades or recognition of others, but from the quiet acknowledgement that we are enough in this very moment. This truth becomes clearer as we age, as we begin to shed the need for external validation and instead embrace the deep peace that comes from within. In doing so, we stop living in constant comparison and start living authentically, aligned with our true selves. The Buddha teaches that the true path to freedom lies in letting go of the need for external validation. Our worth is not measured by the opinions of others, but by our own awareness of our intrinsic value. As we age, we come to understand that we do not need to prove ourselves, seek approval, or chase after praise. We simply need to embrace the truth that we are enough as we are. By cultivating self-compassion, mindfulness, and deep self-awareness, we can release the hold that external validation has on us and experience true inner peace. In the practice of mindfulness meditation, we learn to observe our thoughts and emotions without judgment or attachment. As we cultivate this awareness, we come to see ourselves as we truly are, without the need for external approval. We begin to recognize that the love and affection we seek from others is already within us. The more we learn to validate ourselves, the more we can live authentically, free from the fear of judgment or rejection. True freedom, as the Buddha taught, comes when we let go of the need to prove ourselves to others. It comes when we recognize that we are inherently worthy of love, peace, and joy, without needing anyone's permission or approval. This realization allows us to live fully in the present moment without the weight of others' expectations or judgments. When we stop seeking external validation, we find the freedom to be our true selves, and in that freedom, we discover a deep sense of fulfillment and peace. Letting go of the need for external validation is a powerful step on the path to inner peace. It frees us from the constant cycle of seeking approval and allows us to embrace our own inherent worth. As we grow older and wiser, this truth becomes more apparent. We are enough just as we are. The peace we seek is not in the opinions of others, but in the quiet acceptance of our own being. This is the freedom that the Buddha invites us to embrace. As we grow older, life presents us with a powerful opportunity, a chance to shed what no longer serves us, to release the emotional baggage that weighs heavy on our hearts, and to embrace the fullness of life, free from regret, fear, and attachment. The teachings of the Buddha provide a roadmap for navigating this journey, offering wisdom that transcends time, age, and circumstance. They remind us that the key to a peaceful and fulfilling life lies not in what we accumulate, but in what we choose to let go. Every attachment, every regret, every fear we hold on to is like a stone in our backpack, weighing us down, slowing our progress, and clouding our vision. But the Buddha teaches us that the moment we release these burdens, we open ourselves to the beauty, joy, and peace that are available to us in every single moment. Imagine the freedom that comes when we stop measuring our worth by the opinions of others, when we stop chasing external validation, and when we let go of the lie that it's too late to begin anew. This is where true peace lies, right here in the present within us. By embracing the Buddha's teachings on impermanence, forgiveness, and self-acceptance, we create space for a deeper, richer life, a life that is not defined by age, but by wisdom, compassion, and inner peace. The years we have lived are not just a record of what we've done, but a rich tapestry of experiences that have shaped who we are. And the most powerful part of that tapestry is the wisdom we've gained, the compassion we've cultivated, and the peace we can now share with the world. This is the gift of aging. It is not a time of decline, but a time of deepening, of growth, and of embracing the richness of our experience. But this journey is only possible when we release the things that no longer serve us and open ourselves to the possibility of living a life filled with wisdom, compassion, and peace. So I invite you to ask yourself, what are the things in your life that you are still holding on to? What is keeping you from living in peace and embracing the fullness of your journey? The path to freedom begins with one simple step: letting go. If this message resonated with you, if you found value in the Buddha's timeless wisdom, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. This video is filled with insights that can transform the way we approach life as we age, and there's so much more to explore. Join me on this journey to deeper understanding, and let's walk this path together. Your peace, your wisdom, and your true self are waiting to be discovered. Don't miss out on the next step of your journey. Subscribe now and start embracing the fullness of life today.